Hello students, my name is Evans Christian Komba, a teacher of economics. I hold a bachelor degree from the University of Dar es Salaam. It is Bachelor of Arts with Education from the University of Dar es Salaam, and I have a teaching experience of 23 years. Welcome back to our session. In case you have some questions to ask us, you can send us SMS or through WhatsApp number 0769048594, or you can follow us through Instagram page called Elimika Darasa or YouTube Elimika. Yeah, last time we ended at the point when we were looking at similarities and differences between monopoly and monopolistic competition. We ended at a point when we had analyzed the similarities between monopoly and monopolistic competition, where we said in both market structures, the equilibrium of a firm is found at the point where marginal cost and marginal revenue are equal. And in both market structures, they face downward sloping demand curve. And in all of these market structures, they have excess capacity. And indeed, when we talk of excess capacity, is the difference between ideal output and output actually produced in the long run. Another item which I promised that we continue with it in a second session, and which is today, is concerned with the differences between monopoly and monopolistic competition. Having seen what is monopoly and what is monopolistic competition, we can easily go through and know what are the differences between monopoly and monopolistic competition. My dear students, we say in monopoly there is one seller. But under monopolistic competition, there are many sellers. Now, if you have to follow the same trend, you'll find that in monopoly, it's not easy to make a difference between a firm and an industry, because in monopoly, a firm is also an industry. While under monopolistic competition, there are many firms. Which form the industry. Under monopoly, we said that there are no close substitutes. The monopolists produce goods which have no substitutes, while under monopolistic competition, commodities are differentiated. Under monopoly, there are no close substitutes, while under monopolistic competition, commodities are differentiated. Another one is that under monopoly, the demand curve is inelastic. So we have inelastic demand curve. While under monopolistic competition, the demand curve is elastic. Under monopoly, the commodities have said that they have no substitutes and face inelastic demand curve. But if you have to go through monopoly, we say there is price discrimination. My dear students, we said price discrimination is the process whereby the monopolists charge different prices for the same commodity to different buyers. But under monopolistic competition, there is no price discrimination. No price discrimination exists. Under monopoly, the price at which the firm sells output is higher than under monopolistic competition. So automatically under monopolistic competition, price is lower. Another difference is that under monopoly, there is no competition. No competition exists under monopoly. You have only one seller. But there is high degree of competition under monopoly, under monopolistic competition. High degree of competition under monopolistic competition. Under monopoly, there are barriers to entry. There are barriers to entry. There is no free entry, free exit. But under monopolistic competition, there is free entry and free exit. In monopoly, firms are not free to enter into the industry. But under monopolistic competition, there is free entry and free exit. Another difference that is existing is that the equilibrium of a firm, which is found at the point where MC is equal to MR, marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue, you find that the monopolist is able to enjoy abnormal or supernormal profit in the short run and in the long run. While under monopolistic competition, you find that in the short run, the firm can get either supernormal profit or earn a normal profit or incur a loss, while in the long run, the monopolistic competitive firm will be earning just a normal profit. So basically, these are the differences which exist between monopolistic competition and monopoly. My dear students, after having seen all about monopolistic competition, we need to know other market structures which fall under imperfect market structure. And to start with, it is another market structure called duopoly. We said that in imperfect market structures, we have monopoly, monopolistic competition, duopoly, and oligopoly. Of course, we have others which we listed, which we are going to see them as we go along. Duopoly. This has two words derived from two Greek words, where duo stands for two and polis stands for seller. So a market structure where you have two sellers in a market. Two sellers. We have two kinds of duopoly, perfect and imperfect. Perfect, which is also sometimes known as pure duopoly, and the second one is imperfect, or sometimes known as differentiated. Duopoly. With perfect duopoly or pure duopoly, the two sellers supply homogeneous commodities. When two sellers supply or offer or provide homogeneous commodities, we call that as pure or perfect duopoly. Dear students, I've said shortly that we have two kinds of duopoly, perfect and imperfect. With imperfect duopoly, we have two sellers supplying commodities which are homogeneous. That you have, for instance, two firms producing only one type of a commodity. Like when the farmers, there are only two farmers who produce maize. The second kind of duopoly is differentiated or imperfect duopoly. With imperfect or differentiated duopoly, the two sellers supply differentiated commodities, supply commodities which are close substitutes. Differentiated products. If it is the question of soda, you have one supplying Pepsi, another one supplying Coca-Cola. But in the first case, we had two sellers, each supplying either Pepsi or Coca-Cola. Now, with the oligopoly, the question is different, but still we need to know conditions for duopoly. The conditions which can also be termed as features or sometimes termed as assumptions. So once one says you have to outline the features or conditions or assumptions of duopoly, the things are one and the same. One of the conditions is that there are two sellers. Two sellers exist in a market. The entire product, the whole product of a commodity is supplied by two sellers. Another condition is that there are barriers to entry. There are some restrictions for new firms to enter in an duopoly market. Another condition is that commodities can either be homogeneous or differentiated. Commodities can either be homogeneous, where you can't distinguish the product of one supplier and another one, or they can be substitutes, differentiated commodities. And these two sellers have the power to influence the price. The duopolists are price makers, have the power to dictate, have the power to determine the price of the commodity. And there is always competition between the two suppliers. there is competition between the duopolists. This is all about duopoly, my dear students. So we move to another market structure, which is the last to discuss in detail, is all about oligopoly. My students, oligopoly is again derived from two Greek words. We are common with this second part, which is about sellers. Oligo means few. So, a market structure having few sellers. When you have a market structure where you have few sellers, we say that is an oligopoly market. These, again, are of two types. Perfect, which is called pure, and imperfect, which is known as imperfect. With pure oligopoly, the few sellers supply homogeneous products. With the second one, which is imperfect or differentiated oligopoly, the few sellers supply differentiated products. Well, now the conditions seem to be the same as the conditions for duopoly. Only the question is the number of sellers. Where we have two, we say few. So, conditions. One, we have few sellers. Two, commodities will either be differentiated or homogeneous. Another condition is that there are barriers to entry. New firms are not free to enter into the industry. Another one is that the few sellers have the power to dictate the price. So, oligopolists are price makers, have the power to dictate the price. And that another thing is that there is very close interdependence between the oligopolists. Good to one, good to all. In other words, price and output decisions of one seller affects price and output of other sellers. Price and output decisions of one seller affect price and output decision of other sellers. There is one thing which is of interest under oligopoly. We have something called kinked demand theory. That the kinked demand theory is a theory which was put forward by Professor Paul Sweezy. And this theory is simply stated as that there is a tendency for a uniform or a common market price to be formed in an oligopoly market. That it is common to find that in an oligopoly market, only one price will prevail. And the theory assumes two items. When one of the oligopolists decides to increase the price, others will not follow such a seller. And the consequence will be that the buyers will run from such an oligopolist who has increased the price. So when one oligopolist decides to raise the price, others will not follow such an oligopolist. The consequence will be this oligopolist will lose the customers. So we look at the second assumption of an oligopolist market. Dear students, before we go to a short break, let me remind you once again that if you have questions, please, through WhatsApp or SMS, send us your question through number 0769048594, or you may follow us through Instagram called Elimika Darasa, or subscribe us through YouTube called Elimika. Dear students, you may follow us through Instagram, Elimika Darasa, or subscribe on YouTube, Elimika. Please don't go away.